Hey, welcome to Poll Topic Tuesday here at 103GBFRocks.com. I'm the Sandman, and today our subject is which college football team is going to win the national championship. And here I've brought along what I call an expert, pretty much. It's Ryan O'Brien. He is the co-host of Ford and O'Brien that airs every weekday afternoon from 3 to 6 on ESPN 105.3, our sister station. So, first of all, let's talk about the difference between last year and this year. There used to be a different system for picking the top teams than there is now. Can you explain that?
I can. It used to be the BCS, which was around forever, the Bowl Championship Series, and essentially it was a computer program that factored in the number of wins a team had, the strength of schedule, there was all this other stuff that kind of factored into it. And then based on the numbers that it spit out with all these different factors weighed in, that's what determined your number one and number two team, and that was the only two teams that had a shot at playing for the national championship. Now what they've done is they bring in this 12-person committee, which was originally a 13-person committee. Archie Manning was part of it. He ends up having some knee surgery. It's given him some trouble, so he recuses himself or whatever from it. So you got a 12-person committee that gets together on Sundays after the Saturday games are done, and they look at the teams that played that weekend, how they won, the margin of victory, their strength of schedule, this, that. There's all these other factors. Now it's basically what the BCS was doing, except you've got human beings doing it instead. And they narrow it down to a top 25, but the top 4 will be the ones that ultimately end up playing for the national championship. There's actually going to be 2 semifinal games, and then you have the final game on January 12th. So that's the difference.
Okay, and in the poll you're going to see below the video, we're going to put more than 4 teams in there. We're going to talk about teams that may be on the bubble and do have a chance. But there are a couple different polls. Apparently I have the AP poll in my hand.
AP poll was always the one that, you have your AP poll, you have the BCS poll. The AP poll is what the sports writers around the country vote on.
Okay.
I don't know, to my knowledge, that maybe has a little factor to the playoff committee. They maybe weigh that a little bit, but they've got their own standards that they go by to determine their top 25.
Okay, so we want you to help us in deciding which team is going to win the college football championship. Ryan, can you break down the teams that you think are solid contenders for the championship?
Well, I think right now, because we've still got, at this point, we've got a ranking that will come out later this evening, and then the final ranking to determine what it's the 4 teams that are going to be playing for the national championship come out on Sunday after the conference championship games this weekend. Alabama should be in there. I don't see any reason that they lose the SEC title game to Missouri on Saturday. Oregon should make it. They've got a tough game against Arizona for the Pac-12 championship. That game is Friday night. Arizona's already beaten them. It's the one loss Oregon has all season. Earlier this year, I think week 5. Florida State should be in there, although they're an odd team because they're the only undefeated team left in the country. They've struggled. They've won every game, but they've come out many times with a weak first half, and it's taken them to come back in the second half. It feels to me like for the committee is just looking for a reason not to include them for some reason, because they sit at number 3 right now. The 4th slot is the weird one, and you've got a handful of teams that could make their way into it depending on how the weekend plays out. Ohio State has an opportunity there to make it in. What they need to do, though, is win the Big Ten championship against Wisconsin this weekend, which may be a little bit more difficult. They lost their starting quarterback, J.T. Barrett, to a broken ankle in the game against Michigan last week, so they bring in now their 3rd quarterback of the season to try and win that game against Wisconsin. If they do, I think that's good enough to put them in as the Final 4, personally. But then you've got 2 teams that are also trying to make a case for themselves in TCU and Baylor out of the Big 12. The difference is the Big 12 doesn't have a championship game. There's not enough teams in that conference to put together a championship game. So the champion of the Big 12 is determined by just number of wins.
Sure.
Those 2, if they both win this weekend, will end up with the same record. They've met each other once in the season, and Baylor beat them like 61-58.
Yeah.
So Baylor would certainly have an argument as to why they should maybe work their way into that 4th spot. If Ohio State loses, then it's going to be TCU or Baylor probably as one of those final 4th spot. If they both win and they're co-champions of the Big 12, which is the way they would handle that, then it goes into strength of schedule, the head-to-head matchup that Baylor one's got to factor in somewhere. That's when it gets all kinds of messy. Personally, I wish they just expanded to an 8-team and all the conference champions make it in, and then you have a couple at-large things. But that's not the way it is right now. I think Ohio State has one loss, and that's to Virginia Tech early in the season. Since then, they've been on a roll. I almost wonder if the TCU Baylor game will be, even though Baylor won, it could be a disadvantage based on the rest of their schedule and the strength of it. I think you're going to see, when this weekend's all said and done, I think it'll be Alabama, Oregon, Florida State, and Ohio State.
If you had to pick one team, put on your Swami hat, which team is going to emerge as champion when it's all said and done?
As much as this thing was meant to maybe expand it to allow other teams than the same old teams over and over again to win the championship, I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think Alabama ends up winning because they're really good. Quarterback wise, a little shaky there with Blake Sims. He's been pretty good, but had a rough game with Auburn in the first half. Was able to turn around and make some big plays down the stretch to win that game. Alabama's got a great defense, despite the fact that they allowed Auburn to put 44 points up on the Iron Bowl on Saturday. I think Nick Saban, Lane Kiffin, their offensive coordinator down there, they're just going to be tough to stop. Oregon could give them a solid run if it ends up being those two in the final game, but I like Alabama to win the whole thing again.
Well, there's the breakdown from our expert, our local expert, and it's up to you now to cast your vote in Poll Topic Tuesday right below this video. We're going to put down more than the top 4 or 5. We'll put down several other choices too that are ranked, and you vote for the team you think is going to win the college football championship. Thanks to Ryan O'Brien. He's the co-host of Ford and O'Brien that airs weekdays from 3 till 6 on our sister station ESPN 105.3. I'm the Sandman. Thank you for participating in Poll Topic Tuesday. Good thing I could spit that out, huh? Bye. Looks like we got it.